is that Korea is toxic today because we lost our best and brightest and bravest due to various atrocities that are now put down as political unrest. Let me explain. During Japanese colonization, best and bravest, they were the ones to speak up, they were the ones to protest, they were the ones that were unalived. The people who survived that time were one of three things: cowardly, aka they didn't say anything and they just went along with it, to actively on the side of Japanese colonizers. And those are actually the people who hold the most land in Korea, have a lot of political power. Their families are the ones that hold generational wealth in Korea. Or three, just plain lucky. Think about the pandemic. A lot of us survived due to sheer luck. Even if you masked, sometimes luck was not on your side and you got COVID, and quite a lot of people here in the US unalived. I'm not saying this is what is going to happen to Gaza, but it's my Roman Empire, because every single scholar, every single brave person I see on the news, through this app, one more person, and it's like, I just can't. I just cannot. I saw that the poet Rifat Alarir's daughter was unalived last night. Best and brightest. So I do criticize Korea for being toxic, yes, but also I understand how that happens. My family lived through that process. My grandfather grew up an orphan because his parents fought for the freedom movement. He was orphaned at 14 years old, and he survived due to sheer luck. And he was able to build up wealth, and then that also went away. My grandmother was a toxic individual and gave birth to more toxic people. And you see me here today, unemployed, lots of issues, physical and mental and emotional. And I feel like I'm here due to sheer luck. And now we are witnessing another country go through so many atrocities. And even after Japanese colonization, like, that wasn't it, right? We had multiple dictatorships, and that's why the student protests hit me hard, because that's my parents' generation. So if you want to talk about luck, not only did my grandfather have kids who had to survive, then they grew up and witnessed and had to live through dictatorships during their college years. Please look up the 1970s or 1960s through 1980s Korean student protest movement. Many students were unalived by our own government, and these, again, were our best, brightest, and bravest speaking up against a dictatorship. Again, my parents survived. They got lucky. Many people were not lucky. The Gwangju massacre, just one example. And yeah, of those folks who were unalived, sure, some of them may not have been the best and brightest, but the point stands that when you see something is wrong and you were the one speaking up, there is a high likelihood that you will not survive. And that's what hits me so hard about these student protests that I'm seeing in the US. Those are our best and brightest and bravest, and I hope they survive. You have to survive for the future, because the future that Korea built up and is going through today, those of us who speak up about it, those of us who criticize it, those of us who are not complacent with the toxicity that exists in Korea, we were the lucky ones, and we are only a few. The current government is extremely conservative, verging on dictatorship by a former prosecutor, extremely corrupt. And this happens every 5 years, every time there's an election. We have maybe had 3 good presidents in the past 50, 60 years of democracy. So I just wanted to talk about this. There's no real point. There's no eloquence to this video because it's something that I think about very, very often that makes me sad, that makes me feel more for the folks in Palestine because I see the connections and we are not so far apart. I know it's kind of weird to see Korean care about Palestine so much, but it is not that different. And it's going on in Congo as well. It's going on in Sudan. All of the brave folks, they're the ones putting their lives on the line. And ironically, they are the ones that should survive for the future so they can be future leaders. So yeah, it's a bleak moment, but part of me is glad to see all these protests. Part of me is extremely concerned as we head towards summer. And there was actually a video I wanted to post today instead of this, like, sad verbal vomit about how summer temperatures end up with a lot worse protests. And I'm not talking about the protesters. I am talking about the reaction from the state and the government when it comes to cracking down on protesters. That kind of stuff gets worse as the temperatures climb. And that's not just a pet theory, by the way. It's called the heat hypothesis. Scholars call it different things. But on an individual level, crime rises in the summer, like petty crime, other sorts of not so petty crime. But on a national scale, that's why riots happen more in the summer months between May and August. Summer months in certain countries. But that's a socio-economic trend that happens that is well documented. And again, I was going to talk about this more in an academic setting, like I had screenshots all up, but like my emotional state is not there to be super educational. But just know that's a thing and that's on my mind as I see the young kids. And I'm so proud of them, but I'm so worried for that generation. Like, the adults have failed. The adults have failed. And yes, there will be a future. It's just I don't know what it's going to look like. And autistically, it's difficult because I see the trends and I see the patterns and I don't like where it's going. And meanwhile, I am disabled and unemployed and making videos like this on this app that may or may not go away soon. So, anyway, I may take this video down. It's just so rambly, but I wanted to get it out there that, as I constantly say, things are always connected. We may be far apart geographically, ethnicity-wise, but historically, things are a cycle.